Well, for our first story of the day, our first feature of the day. Now, for many, the new language found in ISO 9001:2015 that most resonates is that involving risk-based thinking, risk and risk-based thinking. The framers of the standard intended registered organizations to have a much clearer understanding of the nature of risk and how risk-based thinking can help improve outcomes for their companies, for your companies. This mindset allows those within the organization to actively address quality from kind of an active as opposed to a reactive position. The result is a nimbler enterprise that's prepared for opportunities and less prone to trying to drive by looking in the rearview mirror. Too many of us do that too often. Joining us now to chat about risk and how it factors into today's forward-thinking quality management systems is Nicole Radziwill, and Nicole is the quality practice leader at Intellex. So Nicole, welcome to Quality Digest Live.
Thanks very much.
How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Mike?
Great, good. Thank you for joining us. Well, let me ask you this to start with. What is it about risk that is one that registers to ISO 9001:2015 in particular most struggle with? What do you hear that people have the biggest questions on regarding risk?
So the nice thing is that at this point, we have some early returns from audits. Some organizations have started to transfer to ISO 9001:2015. And so we can take a look at some of the struggles that are being reported back from the auditors. And so one of the findings is that your organization may have been doing risk management for a while, but how to integrate it into your quality management system is the struggle right now. So specifically around formalizing the process. How do you find the right degree of structured, systematic approach to risk management? You don't just want to build a risk register and then put it on the shelf and ignore it. You have to figure out a way to actively integrate the results of your risk management activities into your organization. So you want to make sure that you follow several different steps that abide by plan, do, check, act. You want to identify the risks. You want to analyze the impacts of those risks to your organization and the quality management system. You want to do both of those. You want to prioritize those in some sort of structured and systematic way. And then you want to decide on actions. One of the things that I know some organizations don't realize is that there's several different actions that you can take. You can do something, you can mitigate that risk, or you can do nothing, or you can do something kind of halfway, like insure against it, or otherwise, make it external or out of scope. When you have those actions decided upon, then you actually have to do it. You have to implement those controls. You have to follow through with what you decided upon. And, like any other quality management system, keeping records of those actions, using what you learned to continuously improve the quality management system and your business outcomes related to risk. You want to make sure you close the loop there. And so I think that's the issue, the key that we see organizations struggling with right now.
And for organizations that maybe aren't ISO 9001:2015 registered, aren't in that ISO framework, we had an article that you wrote for us that we ran this week. You talk a little bit about some other frameworks as well that people can utilize or that people are using that they really should understand risk within those frameworks as well. So what are some of those frameworks?
Just as a quick example, in the Baldrige criteria, Section 2 on strategic planning has incorporated risk-based thinking into the strategic risk of the organization for quite a while. Operational risk is addressed in Chapter 6 on work processes. And so one of the best resources for learning about how to design the risk management processes that follow risk-based thinking would just be to look at some of the award portfolios, those 50-page prospectuses that are published by NIST. You can actually look in there and see how the best performing organizations are implementing these thoughts or have implemented these thoughts. We have a long history of those since these sorts of considerations have been in Baldrige criteria for about 20 years now.
Mm-hmm. And you also talk about risk-based thinking as being different than enterprise risk management, ERM, or operational risk management, ORM. So who is risk-based thinking really for, in your perspective?
So the core of risk-based thinking and enterprise risk management or operations risk management is essentially the same. You're trying to explore as much of possibility space as you can. You're trying to figure out in advance how to respond to those possibilities. The practice is different, however. So at the enterprise level, there's going to be processes for coordinating risk assessment, for coordinating the responses, and for making sure the entire system is helping you achieve the top level goals of your organization. In particular, making sure that that system is matching your organization's desire for risk and your tolerance for risk. So in contrast, risk-based thinking is for everyone. It goes far beyond the risk registers or the decision trees or the bow tie diagrams. It means continuously surveying how your processes might not turn out exactly like you'd expect, and also how the environment around you might change as well. So you can use it when you're designing a process. You can use it when you're continuously improving a process, when you're even engaging in a daily activity, or even when you're working on personal development. So it's a mindset that you can apply as an individual or as part of a team or across your organization to proactively improve the certainty of realizing your goals. And to do that, you have to consider both threats and opportunities. So next week, we'll step you through some practical ways you can start applying this mindset where you live or where you work. One of the reasons why this is important is that ISO 9001:2015, which will be the only version as of December 14th, it really emphasizes the risk-based thinking. And so if you've been recently audited and told that you need to strengthen your approach, there are some practical, tangible ways to do that because, like we mentioned earlier, even though it's a new emphasis in the updated standard, it's not new to quality management in general. And there's a long history of hints and clues to draw from other organizations to help us all get better at it.
I've heard, I think we've all heard this idea that there's good risk and there's bad risks, and that, kind of the flip side of risk really is the sense of opportunity in terms of dealing with challenges, and from that potentially comes a lot of good, positive results for the organization. So can you explain kind of how that works and your take on that?
Yeah, I've heard this too. I think it's a little more complicated. When you look at opportunity itself, that's a little more static. Risk is more dynamic, and in particular, risk depends on the capabilities and the vulnerabilities of the person or the project or the organization that's affected, and there's a relativity between opportunity and risk. Here's a quick example of what I mean. Just on TV this morning, I saw in the weather forecast, the national weather forecast for the U.S., that 11 million people are at risk from the threat of severe storms in the upper Midwest today. And so, hazards associated with severe storms, those are things like lightning and flash flooding and strong winds and maybe even tornadoes. But not everyone is going to be at risk in the same ways or to the same degrees. I mean, if you're going to be out hiking around a golf course, your risk profile is going to be totally different than if you're going to be in a fortified concrete warehouse all day. When an opportunity exists, risk is only going to emerge when someone or something takes the opportunity or chooses not to take the opportunity. So taking the opportunity is going to be associated with risk. There's going to be a strategic risk of doing it. There's going to be an operational risk from the uncertainty of the process of doing it, all the things that come up. Not taking the opportunity is also going to be associated with risk. Mm-hmm. But, risk and opportunity are two very much different things. The risk emerges from taking or not taking the opportunity. So risk-based thinking won't help you magically identify new opportunities, but it's a good complement to exploring what opportunities lie out there.
Do you think that a focus on risk in terms of thinking about innovation, which is a term that a lot of people, of course, want to try to get to today, everyone wants to be innovative and be a disruptor within their own space. So do you think that risk, an understanding of risk, kind of supports innovation, or can it suppress it in a certain sense?
So there's lots of factors that drive innovation, and there's lots of factors that suppress innovation. About 5 or 6 years ago, I think in 2012, there was an article in Harvard Business Review about threats to innovation. And one of the threats that they listed was that incentives in organizations tend to be geared towards reducing risk rather than trying new things out and driving opportunities. And so the thinking being, if we spend so much time exploring financial and strategic and operational risk, then we won't have any time to focus on dreaming about the future, on imagining what's going to come next. So obviously you have to make time for those things that are important. Risk management shouldn't take up so much time that it sucks the life out of your organization. And, unfortunately, the temptation to catch every single risk and figure out a strategy for dealing with each and every one, it can lead to, a form of analysis paralysis, when you're working on risk management. So focusing on what you're doing and not why you're doing it, that's the destructive dynamic. It's kind of like when organizations focus on getting their 9001 certification, they focus on checking the boxes rather than, really trying to build the quality culture that's going to drive the desired quality outcomes, regardless of whether you comply with the standards. It's that sort of thing. So along the same lines, you have to ask yourself, why are you engaging in risk management? Is it just because ISO 9001 2015 says you're supposed to? Or is it because you want to find the highest impact potential future states and spend your cognitive energy figuring out how you're going to respond so that you do wonderful things like, minimize your response time if it actually happens, or reduce the costs associated with that thing happening, or, more significantly, preserving your reputation if something really serious comes to pass. So, at the same time, exploring the parameter space of all those risks, that can help you uncover new breakthroughs. So risk-based thinking can support innovation. I'll touch on this next week and how you can make sure that it's a part of your program. And what it really boils down to is the learning process that happens when everyone individually and in groups and as the organization adopts risk-based thinking. So that learning can advance innovation in your organization.
Mm-hmm. And as you're mentioning, we're doing a webinar. You're presenting a webinar next week that Quality Digest will be hosting on September 6th. Risk-based thinking, new requirements for ISO 9001 2015, and integrated management systems. You can see it right there on our screen. Now, there's been a lot of webinars the last couple of years, year or two on risk. So as a high level, what would you say that people are going to get out of this event? Why would they, why would this be one that you really think people should check out?
Yeah, so many of the organizations that I've been to, or the webinars that I've been to from those organizations, they tend to focus on definitions and the contents of standards like ISO 31000, maybe the specific changes between 9001, 2008, and 2015. And the webinars that I've been to, they feel sort of academic. There's kind of a leap between those definitions and, exactly, what am I going to do when I go to work tomorrow? How can I use this? So this webinar is going to include some of those definitions and structures, but it's going to focus more on understanding what risk-based thinking is and how to help everyone in your organization learn it and internalize it and apply it. Also, we're going to have some great stories, including one about risk-based process design that has potentially very personal impacts, and then one about a global supply chain cyber attack that I really enjoy talking about, with some lessons about what we should pay attention to when we're thinking about risk. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, sounds great. Sounds like good stuff for all of you out there. Again, as we alluded to, Nicole, again, is presenting a webinar next week. The title of that webinar, once again, is right there. You can see it. Is Risk-Based Thinking, New Requirements for ISO 9001 2015 and Integrated Management Systems. It's Thursday, September 6th. It's 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Nicole is presenting. Dirk will be the host of that event. So as you can tell, you got a good taste of it there from Nicole. She knows what she's talking about. It should be a really interesting event. If you haven't registered for it already, there's still time. You'll be getting some reminders in your email this week coming up. So Nicole, thanks again for joining us today on Quality Digest Live. We're going to see you on Thursday.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mike. See you then.
Thanks. See you then. Bye.